I'm Calhane, 27 years old, and I just heard the words that shattered my world. My own parents told me the greatest gift I could give my brother was to vanish from our family forever. Their cold eyes showed no remorse as they suggested I skip his wedding entirely. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife could. How do you process being erased by the people who gave you life? If you're watching this, let me know where you're from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe, because trust me, what happened next changed everything for my family in ways nobody could have predicted. Growing up in our suburban Massachusetts home, my family looked picture perfect from the outside. My father, James, was a bank director, always dressed impeccably in tailored suits that matched his stern personality. My mother, Caroline, was a respected pediatrician at the city hospital, known for her brilliant mind and attention to detail. I was their firstborn, and for 5 glorious years, I was the center of their universe. Then Tyler arrived. I remember the day they brought him home. I was excited to have a baby brother, imagining all the adventures we would share. I had prepared a drawing of our family now with 4 stick figures instead of 3. My parents barely glanced at it before rushing to check if Tyler needed a diaper change. That moment set the tone for the next 2 decades. From the beginning, the expectations placed on me were astronomical. As the firstborn son, I was supposed to be exceptional in everything. My father would quiz me on multiplication tables when I was 6 years old. My mother enrolled me in piano lessons, swimming classes, and French tutoring before I was 8. I still remember her words, "Mediocrity is not an option for a Carson child." But something strange happened when Tyler turned 3. He showed interest in the piano, plinking out simple melodies by ear. My parents were ecstatic. "He's a prodigy," they declared. My own progress on the instrument, achieved through hours of practice, was suddenly insignificant. Within months, my piano lessons were canceled to focus resources on Tyler's exceptional talent. This pattern repeated throughout our childhood, when I earned straight. As in middle school, my report card was acknowledged with a distracted, "Good job, Calhane," before they rushed to watch Tyler's elementary school choir performance. When I won the regional science fair in 9th grade with a project on renewable energy, my parents couldn't attend because Tyler had a piano recital the same day. "We'll see your certificate later," my mother said. "Tyler needs us there for support." High school brought more of the same. I joined the debate team, the track team, and maintained perfect grades. I was determined to make them notice me, to make them proud. I would stay up studying until 2 in the morning. Then wake up at 6 to run 5 miles before school. My efforts earned me respect from teachers and classmates, but at home I remained in Tyler's shadow. I remember my 18th birthday. It fell on a Thursday, and I had hoped for a small family dinner. Instead, I came home to an empty house and a note gone to Tyler's orchestra audition, leftovers in the fridge. "Happy birthday." They returned at 10 that night, jubilant because 13-year-old Tyler had been selected for the youth symphony. "Sorry about dinner," my father said, not looking particularly sorry. But this was important. The message was clear: Tyler's opportunities were important. Mine were expected. The most painful part was that I couldn't hate Tyler. He was a good kid with a genuine talent for music. He would often seek me out for advice, or just to hang out, looking up to me with admiration that our parents never showed. We would play video games in my room, and I would help him with homework. In those moments, I felt the brotherly connection I craved. "You're the smartest person I know, Cal," he once told me, when I helped him with a science project. That simple compliment meant more to me than he could understand. But those moments couldn't erase the sting when my parents would interrupt our time together because Tyler needs to practice, or Tyler has a special lesson today. My graduation day crystallized everything. As valedictorian, I delivered a speech to the entire school. From the podium, I scanned the audience, finally spotting my family in the back row. My father was checking his watch, my mother was texting someone, and only Tyler was actually watching me. They left immediately after the ceremony, before I could even take photos with friends. "Tyler has a summer music camp interview tomorrow," my mother explained. "We need to prepare." That night, as I packed for college, Tyler slipped into my room. "Your speech was really good," he said quietly. "Thanks, buddy," I replied, trying to hide the hurt. "I'm sorry they're like that," he added, surprising me. At 13, he was more perceptive than I'd realized. I ruffled his hair. "It's not your fault." And it wasn't. The problem wasn't Tyler's talent or success. It was our parents' inability to see that they could celebrate both their sons. In their minds, there was only room for one star in the family, and they had made their choice long ago. As I folded my valedictorian sash into a box, I wondered if college would finally give me the fresh start I needed away from the constant comparisons and invisible presence in my own family. I left for college with a full academic scholarship to MIT, something I thought would finally make my parents proud. When I called to share the news, my mother's response was underwhelming. "That's nice, Calhoun. Did you remember to pack your winter clothes? Boston gets very cold." No congratulations, no pride, just practical concerns about weather. Determined to stand on my own feet, I immediately found 2 part-time jobs, mornings at a campus coffee shop and evenings doing tech support. Between classes, work, and sleep, I barely had time to breathe, but there was something liberating about being financially independent. For the first time, I didn't need to ask my parents for anything. During my sophomore year, I developed an inventory management software for the coffee shop where I worked. The owner was so impressed that he paid me to implement it fully. Word spread, and soon 3 other local businesses approached me with similar requests. By junior year, I was earning more from my budding software company than from my part-time jobs. I incorporated my business, Carson Solutions, during my 3rd year. Operating from my dorm room with 2 classmates as part-time developers, we specialized in custom software for small businesses. The work was challenging but rewarding. Finally, I was building something that was entirely mine, something no one could compare to Tyler's achievements. I called home less frequently. Our conversations followed a predictable pattern: brief inquiries about my studies, followed by lengthy updates about Tyler's musical accomplishments. He was flourishing at a prestigious arts high school, collecting accolades and performances. My parents had converted our garage into a soundproof practice studio for him. "We're so blessed to have such a talented son," my father once said, apparently forgetting he had 2 sons. During my senior year, I met Laura in a computer ethics class. She was brilliant, majoring in cybersecurity with a minor in philosophy. Unlike everyone else in my life, she showed genuine interest in my work and ideas. "Tell me more about your inventory system," she said on our first coffee date. "The user interface design sounds fascinating." That simple request nearly brought me to tears. No one in my family had ever asked about my work with genuine curiosity. Laura quickly became my emotional anchor. She listened when I talked about my family dynamics, offering perspective without judgment. After meeting my parents at a holiday gathering, she was blunt. "They're missing out on knowing an incredible person," she told me. "That's their loss, not yours." With Laura's encouragement, I expanded Carson Solutions. By graduation, we had 10 clients, and I hired my first full-time employee. The business wasn't huge, but it was profitable and growing steadily. I rented a small office space in Cambridge and threw myself into building my company. Despite the distance I was creating, I still made efforts to maintain family connections. I would call on Sundays, send birthday gifts, and visit for major holidays. Each attempt was met with the same tepid response. Conversations centered around Tyler's latest concert or competition. My business achievements were acknowledged with distracted nods. At Thanksgiving dinner, my first year after graduation, I announced that Carson Solutions had secured a contract with a regional retail chain. "That's nice," my mother said, passing the cranberry sauce. "Tyler, tell Calhoun about your summer program in Vienna." The pattern was so familiar it almost didn't hurt anymore. Almost. Tyler was now 18 and preparing for conservatory auditions. Our parents spared no expense for his musical education. Private tutors, master classes with renowned pianists, trips to music festivals across the country. They remortgaged their house to buy him a concert-grade grand piano worth more than most cars. Meanwhile, I had bootstrapped my business without a cent of family support. When I needed startup capital to develop our first product suite, I worked 80-hour weeks and lived on ramen noodles rather than ask my parents for help. The contrast wasn't lost on me. Laura moved in with me after she graduated. We found a cozy apartment near my office, creating a home that felt warm and supportive in ways my childhood house never had. With her cybersecurity expertise, she eventually joined Carson Solutions as our security director, strengthening both our relationship and the business. "You know what I love about us," she said one evening as we worked late. "We're partners in everything. We lift each other up." The concept was foreign to my family experience, where success seemed to be a zero-sum game. If Tyler was succeeding, it somehow meant I couldn't. Despite everything, I maintained contact with Tyler. We would text regularly and occasionally meet for lunch when he was in Boston. He was growing into a thoughtful young man with genuine talent, and I couldn't bring myself to punish him for our parents' behavior. "They're really intense about my music," he confided during one of our meetups. "Sometimes I just want to play video games or hang out with friends, but there's always another competition or performance to prepare for." For the first time, I realized Tyler might be feeling his own version of pressure, just different from mine. While I was invisible, he was hypervisible, every action scrutinized and directed. By the time I turned 26, Carson Solutions had grown to 20 employees with offices in Boston and Providence. We'd developed a reputation for quality work and innovative solutions. I had achieved success by any reasonable measure, but still felt a hollowness when family gatherings inevitably turned into celebrations of Tyler's latest achievements. I continued sending my parents articles about our company's growth, inviting them to client launch parties, sharing our milestones. The responses were always variations of, "That's nice, but we're busy with Tyler's concert season." Laura would squeeze my hand during these calls, her touch reminding me that I was seen and valued, even if not by the people who should have been my biggest supporters. "Family isn't always blood," she would remind me. "We're building our own family now." And we were. Our team at Carson Solutions felt more like family than my biological one ever had. We celebrated victories together, supported each other through challenges, and recognized each person's unique contributions. It was everything I had wanted from my parents but never received. I was learning to find validation within myself and my chosen family, rather than seeking it from people determined not to give it. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was progress. Then came the phone call that would set in motion events I could never have anticipated. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was reviewing code with our development team when my phone lit up with Tyler's name. We spoke regularly, but weekday calls were unusual. "Tyler, everything okay?" I answered, stepping out of the meeting room. "I'm engaged." His voice bubbled with excitement. "I asked Veronica last night and she said yes." I felt a genuine surge of happiness for my brother. At 22, he was young, but he and Veronica had been dating since they met at music school 2 years ago. She was a talented violinist from a wealthy family known for their patronage of the arts. "That's fantastic, Tyler. Congratulations. Tell me everything." As he described the elaborate proposal at the Symphony Hall where they first performed together, I felt a warm glow of brotherly pride. Despite our complicated family dynamics, I loved seeing my brother happy. "We're planning the wedding for June," he continued. "Mom and Dad are thrilled. They're already talking about booking the Grand Harbor Resort." The Grand Harbor was the most exclusive venue in our hometown, known for hosting celebrity weddings with price tags to match. It seemed my parents' financial priorities remained unchanged. "Sounds amazing," I said. "Let me know how I can help." "Actually," Tyler hesitated, "there's a family dinner this Saturday to officially announce the engagement. Mom asked me to invite you and Laura. It's at 7 at our parents' house." The invitation surprised me. Family gatherings typically came with minimal notice, as if deliberately making it difficult for me to attend. This one felt different. "We'll be there," I promised already, mentally rearranging my schedule. After hanging up, I shared the news with Laura, who was genuinely happy for Tyler but cautious about the family dinner. "Just manage your expectations," she advised gently. "This is still your family we're talking about." I spent the next few days preparing a special engagement gift. Through industry connections, I arranged for Tyler and Veronica to have a private recording session at a prestigious studio in New York, complete with a professional sound engineer and producer. It was the kind of opportunity music students dreamed about, allowing them to create a professional quality demo. I was genuinely excited to give them something meaningful. Saturday arrived, and Laura and I drove the 90 minutes to my parents' suburban home. The driveway was filled with cars, including Veronica's parents' Bentley. My stomach tightened as I parked on the street. "Ready?" Laura squeezed my hand. "As I'll ever be," I replied. My mother opened the door with an air kiss that didn't quite land. "Calhane, Laura, come in. Everyone's in the dining room." The house had been transformed for the occasion. Fresh flowers adorned every surface, and the dining table was set with the fine china reserved for important guests. Tyler and Veronica sat at the center, surrounded by her parents, several relatives and family friends. My father nodded curtly from across the room, then returned to his conversation with Veronica's father, a distinguished-looking man with silver hair and a confident bearing. "That's Richard Montgomery," Laura whispered. "He owns half the performing arts centers on the East Coast." Suddenly, my parents' enthusiasm made perfect sense. This wasn't just a marriage, it was an advantageous connection. Tyler spotted us and waved us over. He looked genuinely happy to see me introducing us warmly to Veronica's family. She was gracious and charming, clearly fond of my brother. "Tyler speaks of you often," she told me. "He says you're the smartest person he knows." Before I could respond, my mother interrupted to direct everyone to their seats. Laura and I were placed at the far end of the table next to an elderly great-aunt I barely remembered meeting before. Throughout dinner, conversation revolved around wedding plans. The scale of the event became increasingly clear as details emerged. "The Grand Harbor's main ballroom can accommodate 300 guests," my mother announced. "With Richard's connections, we expect quite a distinguished guest list. We're thinking of flying in a string quartet from Vienna," my father added. "Colleagues of Tyler's from his summer program." Veronica's mother, Elaine, a slender woman with perfect posture, chimed in. "The flowers alone will be extraordinary. I've already spoken with designers from New York." As the dinner progressed, I learned that my parents had sold their lake house to help finance the wedding. "It's worth every penny," my father declared. "This wedding will establish important connections for Tyler's career." I glanced at Tyler, wondering if this extravaganza was what he wanted. He smiled tightly, his eyes darting between our parents' and Veronica's. I recognized that look from childhood, Tyler trying to please everyone. After dessert, Tyler stood to make a toast. He thanked everyone for their support and excitement, then dropped the bombshell that would begin the unraveling of my relationship with my family. "And I want to thank my best friend Jason for agreeing to be my best man. No one has been more supportive of my music career." The world seemed to tilt beneath me. Not being asked to be my brother's best man was a clear message. Despite our bond, despite our shared history, I was considered secondary to a friend he'd known for 3 years. Laura's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. The conversation continued around me, but I heard it as if from underwater. When I excused myself to use the bathroom, Tyler followed me into the hallway. "Cal, are you okay?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "You didn't want me as your best man." The question came out more wounded than I intended. Tyler's expression fell. Mom and Dad thought Jason would be better. His father conducts the Boston Philharmonic, and they thought it would be better for your career." I finished flatly. "I'm sorry, Cal. I should have stood up to them." I forced a smile. "It's fine. Really. It's your wedding. You should have whoever you want." But it wasn't fine. As I returned to the table, I saw my family through new eyes. This wedding wasn't about celebrating Tyler and Veronica's love. It was a strategic event, a networking opportunity disguised as a family milestone. And in that strategy, I was not just unnecessary, I was potentially problematic. Later that night, as Laura drove us home, she broke the silence. "Are you okay?" "No," I admitted. "But I will be." What I didn't know then was how much worse things would get and how soon. In the weeks that followed, I tried to stay involved in the wedding preparations despite the best man revelation. I wanted to support Tyler to be the bigger person, despite the sting of rejection. Each weekend, Laura and I would make the drive to my parents' house, where planning sessions had taken over every available surface. The dining room table had become command central, covered with seating charts, fabric swatches, and catering menus. My mother spent hours on the phone with vendors, negotiating every detail with the precision she usually reserved for medical diagnoses. My father had created spreadsheets tracking expenses down to the penny, his banking background evident in the meticulous calculations. I noticed that everyone had been assigned specific roles. My Aunt Susan was coordinating with out-of-town guests. My Uncle Robert was handling transportation arrangements. Even distant cousins had been given tasks related to the wedding. Everyone except me. When I offered to help with the wedding website, my mother waved me off. Veronica's brother is a web designer. He's already handling it. When I suggested I could coordinate with the tech team at the venue about sound and lighting for the reception, my father shook his head. Richard has connections with the best production companies. It's all arranged. Every offer was politely but firmly declined. I was the only family member without any responsibility, an outsider in the whirlwind of preparation. One Sunday afternoon, about 2 months before the wedding, I found my father alone in his study, frowning at his laptop. "Everything okay, Dad?" I asked, seizing the rare opportunity for one-on-one conversation. He sighed heavily. The florist just increased their quote by $3,000. With the band's travel expenses already over budget, we're looking at some difficult choices. I saw an opening. I could help with that. Carson Solutions had a really good quarter. I'd be happy to contribute. It was a genuine offer. Despite everything, I wanted Tyler's day to be special, and I had the means to help make that happen. My father's expression changed, hardening into something unfamiliar. "We don't need your money, Calhoun. I'm just trying to help Dad. If you want to help, just follow the plan and don't cause problems." He turned back to his laptop, effectively dismissing me. The interaction left me unsettled. What did he mean by causing problems? What was I doing wrong simply by existing? The answer came later that same day. My mother cornered me in the kitchen while I was getting water. "Calhoun, we need to discuss your role in the wedding." "My role? I don't have one from what I can tell." She pursed her lips. "That's precisely what we need to address. This wedding is very important for Tyler's future. There will be influential people there, people who can open doors for his career. And your presence might be complicated. Your business is admirable, but it's not the kind of success these people understand or value. Next to Tyler's artistic achievements and the Montgomery family's status, your work seems," she searched for a word, "and pedestrian." The blow landed exactly as intended. 27 years of feeling inadequate crystallized in that single word, pedestrian. "My company employs 20 people and generates 7 figures in revenue." I said, my voice tight. "How is that pedestrian?" "It's not about money, Calhoun. It's about cultural significance. Tyler is an artist. These are people who value artistic contribution above commercial success." I stared at her, finally understanding. "You're embarrassed by me." She didn't deny it. "I'm concerned that your presence might detract from the impression we're trying to create. Tyler has a chance to join very elite circles with this marriage. We don't want anything to jeopardize that." "Anything meaning me," I clarified. She didn't answer directly. "Just think about what's best for your brother." I walked away before I said something I couldn't take back. Laura found me in the car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. "What happened?" she asked, sliding into the passenger seat. I recounted the conversation, my voice shaking. 27 years and I'm still not good enough. I'll never be good enough. Laura's face flushed with anger. "That's absolutely ridiculous. Your business is incredibly successful. You've built something meaningful from nothing." "Not to them. To them, I'll always be the other son, the disappointing one." "Where was Tyler during all this?" she asked. "Piano room, practicing. Always practicing. I started the car. Let's go home." The following weekend brought the suit fittings. Though I wasn't in the wedding party, my mother had insisted I needed a new suit to blend in appropriately. The subtext was clear: don't embarrass us. At the high-end tailor's shop, I stood awkwardly while the rest of the wedding party, Tyler, Jason, and 4 of Veronica's brothers and cousins, were fitted for matching tuxedos. I was measured separately for a simple charcoal suit that would help me fade into the background, as my mother put it. Tyler seemed uncomfortable with the situation but said nothing. Our once close relationship was straining under the weight of the approaching wedding. Every time I tried to connect with him, someone would interrupt with a wedding-related question or concern. The final straw came 1 week before the wedding at the rehearsal dinner. The event was held at an exclusive country club, with about 50 guests in attendance. Just the inner circle, according to my mother, though I recognized few of the faces. Laura and I arrived exactly on time, but the dinner was already underway. We were shown to our table positioned far from the main wedding party. I found myself seated with distant relatives and a few friends of Veronica's family whom I'd never met. Throughout the evening, my parents moved from table to table, introducing Tyler and Veronica to important guests. When they reached our table, my father made quick introductions, referring to me simply as our son without mentioning my name or anything about me. "And what do you do?" asked an elegant older woman seated across from me. Before I could answer, my father interjected, "He's in computers. Now, have you met the Sullivans? Their daughter just performed at Carnegie Hall." They moved on, leaving me mid-sentence. Laura's hand tightened around mine under the table. After dinner, as guests mingled over drinks, I approached my parents, determined to address what was happening. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice low. "Privately." My mother glanced around nervously. "This isn't a good time, Calhane." "It never is," I replied. "But we need to discuss why you're treating me like I'm invisible." My father set down his drink. "Let's step outside." We moved to the terrace away from the other guests. The night air was cool, but the tension between us generated enough heat to ward off any chill. "What's the problem now?" my father asked, his tone suggesting I was being difficult. "The problem is that you've done everything possible to minimize my presence at this wedding. You've excluded me from planning, positioned me away from the family, and can barely bring yourselves to acknowledge me to your guests." My mother sighed dramatically. "You're overreacting as usual." "Am I? You introduced me as our son without even using my name." "This event is about Tyler," my father said firmly. "Not everything has to be about you, Calhane." "Nothing has ever been about me," I countered. "But this goes beyond favoring Tyler. You're actively trying to hide me." My mother's carefully maintained composure cracked. "Because you don't fit. This wedding is connecting Tyler to people who matter in his world. What would we even say about you? That you make business software, that you dropped out of your piano lessons, that you chose commerce over culture. I built a successful company from nothing," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "I employ people. I solve real problems." "And that's fine," my father interjected. "But it's not exceptional, not like Tyler's gift." The words hung in the air between us, the truth finally laid bare. In their eyes, I would never be exceptional. I would never be enough. My mother glanced back toward the party. "We should return to the guests." "First tell me honestly," I said, blocking their path. "Do you even want me at the wedding?" They exchanged a look that communicated volumes. "Perhaps," my mother said carefully, "the greatest gift you could give your brother would be to step back. Allow the focus to remain where it belongs, on Tyler and his future." The words hit like physical blows. After 27 years, they were finally saying outright what they had implied my entire life. I was unnecessary, unwanted, a distraction from the son who really mattered. The rehearsal dinner continued inside, but for me, time had stopped on that terrace. My parents' words echoed in my head, drowning out the distant sounds of laughter and music. "You want me to skip my own brother's wedding?" I finally managed to ask. My father adjusted his tie, a nervous habit from his banking days. "We're simply suggesting that Tyler deserves his moment without complications." "And I'm a complication. The Montgomerys have invited the dean of the New England Conservatory, the conductor of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, and 3 music critics," my mother explained, as if that justified everything. "This wedding is as much about Tyler's future as it is about his marriage." "Does Tyler feel this way?" I asked. My parents exchanged another glance. "Tyler wants everyone to be happy," my mother said carefully. "He's always been sensitive to tension." Translation: they hadn't discussed this with Tyler, but they were using his people-pleasing nature against me. "I need to hear this from him," I said, turning toward the door. My father grabbed my arm. "Don't make a scene, Calhane. Not tonight." I shook him off. "I'm not going to confront him at his rehearsal dinner. I'm not you." Inside, I found Laura by the bar, concern evident in her expression. "We're leaving," I told her quietly. "What happened?" she asked, setting down her drink. "I'll explain in the car." As we made our excuses and headed for the exit, Tyler intercepted us. "You're going already?" he asked, disappointment clear in his voice. "Early meeting tomorrow," I lied. The dinner was lovely. Tyler wasn't fooled. "Is everything okay? You seem upset." I wanted to tell him everything, to ask if he knew what our parents were doing. But looking at him in his tailored suit, surrounded by his future in-laws and influential connections, I couldn't bring myself to burden him. "Everything's fine," I assured him. "We'll talk after the honeymoon, okay?" He nodded, though his expression remained concerned. "I'm really glad you're going to be there next weekend. It wouldn't feel right without you." His words twisted the knife deeper. Tyler wanted me there, but our parents were actively trying to remove me from the equation. The drive home was silent, until Laura finally spoke. "What did they say to you?" I recounted the conversation verbatim, my voice hollow. "That's beyond favoritism," Laura said, anger evident in her tone. "That's emotional abuse, Cal." 27 years of it, I agreed. And I've been taking it, making excuses, trying harder. For what? So they can tell me the best thing I can do for my brother is disappear. What are you going to do? I stared out at the darkened highway. I don't know yet. But by morning I did know. After a sleepless night, I called Tyler and asked to meet him for coffee alone. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe midway between our homes. He arrived looking tired, with the slightly frazzled appearance of someone deep in wedding preparations. "Thanks for making time," I said, as he sat down. "Of course. What's going on, Cal? You seemed off last night." I took a deep breath. "I need to ask you something important, and I need you to be completely honest." He nodded, suddenly serious. "Do you want me at your wedding?" His eyes widened. "What? Of course I do. Why would you even ask that?" "Because Mom and Dad don't. They've made that very clear." Tyler's expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally uncomfortable recognition. "They've been weird about the guest list," he admitted. "But I never thought. They told me last night that the greatest gift I could give you would be to step back and not attend. That my presence would complicate things with the Montgomerys and their connections." Tyler's face flushed with embarrassment. "Cal, I had no idea. I never asked them to do that. I would never." "I know you wouldn't," I assured him. "But the question is, what are you going to do about it?" He looked down at his untouched coffee. "I'll talk to them. Tell them this isn't acceptable. And if they don't listen, if they continue trying to push me out..." Tyler's silence told me everything. He wouldn't stand up to them, not really. He never had. "It's your wedding," I said finally. "If you want me there, I'll be there. But I need you to be clear with them about that." "I will," he promised. "Right after this, I'll call them." We parted with an awkward hug, and I drove back to Boston with a heavy heart. I knew Tyler meant well, but I also knew our parents. They would steamroll his objections, use guilt and manipulation, and ultimately get their way. 3 days passed with no word from Tyler. Then on Wednesday evening, 3 days before the wedding, my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. "Hello," I answered, steeling myself. "Cal Hain." My mother's voice was cold. "We need to discuss your conversation with Tyler." "I'm listening." "You had no right to upset him like that, especially with the wedding so close. He came to us very distressed. I simply asked if he wanted me at his wedding, since you and Dad made it clear you don't." "We never said that," she insisted. "We merely suggested that perhaps a lower profile would be appropriate." "You asked me not to attend," I reminded her. "We asked you to consider what's best for Tyler. And you've decided that's my absence." She sighed heavily. This wedding represents a pivotal moment in Tyler's career. The Montgomerys are not just welcoming him into their family, they're introducing him to their world. A world where connections and impressions matter enormously. And I don't fit into that world. Frankly, no, you don't. Your values, your career choice, your entire approach to life is at odds with the artistic community Tyler is entering. The truth finally laid bare. Put Dad on the phone too, I requested. If we're having this conversation, I want both of you to hear what I have to say. There was a rustling sound, and then my father's voice joined the call. We're both here, Calhane. Let's resolve this quickly. There's nothing to resolve, I said calmly. I just want to understand exactly where we stand. We stand 3 days before your brother's wedding, my father said impatiently. A wedding that needs to go perfectly. And my presence would prevent that. Your presence would be a distraction, my mother clarified. The focus should be on Tyler and Veronica, not on family tensions. Tensions you've created, I pointed out. This isn't productive, my father cut in. The bottom line is simple. The greatest gift you could give your brother for his wedding is your absence, permanently. The word hung in the air. Permanently. Permanently, I repeated. My mother's voice was soft but resolute. It would be better for everyone, Calhane. You've built your separate life. You have your business. Perhaps it's time to acknowledge that our family dynamics aren't healthy for any of us. You're asking me to remove myself from the family, not just the wedding. We're suggesting that everyone might be happier with some distance, my father said. Tyler needs to focus on his career without being dragged into our issues. Our issues, I echoed. You mean the fact that you've favored him over me my entire life, that you've consistently undermined and dismissed my achievements, those issues. This is exactly the kind of drama we're trying to avoid, my mother sighed. The wedding is Saturday. We think it would be best if you didn't attend. And after that, I asked. Family holidays, Tyler's birthday, where exactly does this permanent absence end? Let's take it one event at a time, my father hedged. But I understood perfectly. This wasn't about one wedding. This was the culmination of a lifetime of being the less favored child, the final push out of the family circle. I understand, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. You've made yourselves very clear. So you'll respect our wishes, my mother asked hopefully. I'll do what I think is right, I replied. Goodbye. I hung up before they could respond. Laura found me sitting motionless in our home office, staring at nothing. Cal, what's wrong? I told her everything, the call, the request for my permanent absence, the final rejection. Those absolute monsters, she whispered. How dare they? It's actually liberating, I said, surprised to find truth in the words. All these years I've been trying to earn their approval, their love. Now I know it's not possible. It never was. What are you going to do? I stood up suddenly, decisive. Pack a bag. We're leaving. Leaving? Where are we going? Anywhere but here. I need distance. Space to think. Laura didn't question further. She simply nodded and headed to our bedroom to pack. I took out my phone and sent a single text to Tyler. I'm respecting Mom and Dad's wishes and won't be at the wedding. I love you and wish you happiness. When you're ready to talk, I'll be here. Then I turned off my phone, packed essential documents and clothes, and walked out of our apartment with Laura. I didn't look back as I locked the door behind us. The greatest gift I could give my brother, according to my parents, was my disappearance. So that's exactly what I would give them all. We drove north along the coast with no particular destination in mind. Laura sat beside me, occasionally checking her phone, but mostly respecting my need for silence. The further we got from Boston, the lighter I felt, as if physically distancing myself from my family was releasing a lifetime of tension. We should find a place to stay, Laura suggested as dusk fell. We've been driving for hours. I nodded, turning off the highway toward a small coastal town. The GPS led us to a cluster of rental cabins overlooking the Atlantic. The office was closed, but a sign directed after-hours arrivals to call a number. Ocean View Cabins. A friendly voice answered. This is Margaret. Hi, I'm hoping to rent a cabin for a few nights, I said. You're in luck. We had a cancellation today. How long will you be staying? I glanced at Laura. We're not sure yet. Is a week possible? Absolutely. I'll get you set up. 20 minutes later, we were settled in a cozy one-bedroom cabin with a deck facing the ocean. The sound of waves crashing against the shore provided a soothing backdrop to my tumultuous thoughts. This is nice, Laura said, unpacking the few things we'd brought. Peaceful. I nodded, stepping onto the deck. The night air was cool and salty, cleansing somehow. I'm turning off my phone, I decided. Completely. I don't want to be reached. Laura hesitated. Are you sure? What about work? The team can handle things for a few days. I need this, Laura. Complete disconnection. She nodded, understanding. I'll keep mine on for emergencies, but I won't tell anyone where we are unless you say it's okay. Thank you. I powered down my phone and placed it in a drawer. Let's just exist for a while. No family drama, no wedding, no business emergencies. That night I slept better than I had in months, perhaps years. The weight of constantly seeking approval of never being enough temporarily lifted from my shoulders. The next morning, we explored the small town, finding a cafe with decent coffee and fresh pastries. We walked the beach, collected shells, and talked about everything except my family. Laura, always intuitive, seemed to understand exactly what I needed. I've been thinking about the Sullivan contract, I said, as we sat on the sand watching the waves. We should restructure the proposal to focus more on their inventory challenges. Laura smiled. Thought you were taking a break from work. This doesn't feel like work, I explained. It's just thinking clearly for the first time in a while. And it was true. Away from the constant undercurrent of family tension, my mind was sharper, more creative. Over the next 2 days, I sketched out solutions to business problems that had been stumping me for weeks. Laura took notes on her phone occasionally, offering insights or questions that pushed my thinking further. We fell into a simple routine: mornings on the beach, afternoons working on business strategies, evenings cooking simple meals in our cabin kitchen. It felt like a reset, a chance to remember who I was outside of my family's narrow definition. Friday arrived, the day before Tyler's wedding. I tried not to think about it, but images kept intruding: the Grand Harbor decorated with elaborate flower arrangements, Tyler in his tailored tuxedo, my parents greeting guests with practiced smiles. Want to talk about it? Laura asked, catching me staring out at the ocean. Not really, I admitted. It is Wooded Island. We spent the day hiking coastal trails, pushing our bodies until my mind was too tired to dwell on what I was missing. That night I dreamt of empty ballrooms and silent pianos. Saturday dawned bright and clear. Tyler's wedding day. I wondered if he missed me, if he'd asked about my absence. More likely, my parents had crafted some explanation that painted me as difficult or selfish. We could drive back, Laura suggested quietly over breakfast. If you wanted to be there. I shook my head. They made their choice. I've made mine. We decided to drive to a neighboring town, further removing ourselves from thoughts of the wedding. We spent the day exploring antique shops and local art galleries, had lunch at a seafood shack overlooking a small harbor, and found a bookstore where we lost ourselves for hours. It was in that bookstore, browsing through business strategy books, that Laura's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, frowned, and stepped outside to answer. When she returned a few minutes later, her expression was troubled. What is it? I asked, immediately alert. That was Jamie from the office, she said. Your parents have been calling the company number repeatedly. Apparently there's some kind of emergency with the wedding. My first instinct was dismissal. It's a manipulation tactic. They're trying to make me feel guilty. Jamie said they sounded genuinely panicked, something about payments not going through and vendors threatening to walk out. I frowned. That doesn't make sense. My parents are nothing if not financially meticulous. There's more, Laura continued. According to your mom, all the vendor contracts are in your name. They can't authorize the final payments without you. The realization hit me like a physical blow. 2 months ago, when I was still trying to be involved, I had offered to help with vendor negotiations. My father had given me the paperwork, apparently to get me out of his hair. I had reviewed the contracts, suggested some improvements, and signed as the responsible party. I had completely forgotten about it in the chaos that followed. Oh my God, I breathed. The contracts. I am the point of contact for the venue, the caterers, the florist. And the payment authorizations require your signature or in-person confirmation, Laura finished. I sat down heavily on a nearby chair. So right now there's a wedding venue full of 300 guests with no flowers, no music, and no food service. Laura confirmed. Because all the vendors are waiting for payment authorization from you. The irony was almost too perfect. In their effort to exclude me from the wedding my parents had overlooked, the one way I was actually essential. We need to go back, I said, already heading for the door. Are you sure? Laura asked, following me. After everything they said, I paused. I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for Tyler. This is his day, and whatever issues I have with our parents, he doesn't deserve to have it ruined. We raced back to the cabin, threw our belongings into bags, and were on the road within 20 minutes. I turned on my phone, wincing at the barrage of notifications that immediately flooded the screen. 37 missed calls, 22 voicemails, and over 50 text messages. I didn't listen to the voicemails or read the texts. Instead, I called the Grand Harbor directly. Grand Harbor Resort. How may I direct your call? A polite voice answered. This is Calhoun Carson. I believe you're hosting the Carson-Montgomery wedding today. Oh, Mr. Carson. The receptionist's voice changed instantly. Yes, we've been trying to reach you. There's a situation with the vendor payments. I'm aware. I'm driving there now. Should be there in about 3 hours. Can you let the management know I'm on my way to resolve everything? Certainly, sir. I'll inform them immediately. I hung up and pressed harder on the accelerator. Laura pulled up the contracts on her phone, refreshing my memory on what needed to be done. The final payments are substantial, she noted. Almost $70,000 across all vendors. Money that my parents definitely have, I said. They just can't access it without me. As we drove, I thought about the situation. My parents had gone to extraordinary lengths to exclude me from the wedding, yet they had inadvertently made me the linchpin of the entire event. The universe had a strange sense of humor. 3 tense hours later, we pulled into the Grand Harbor's circular driveway. The scene was one of controlled chaos. Staff hurried about with worried expressions. A truck from the florist sat half unloaded. The loading dock area, visible from the parking lot, showed caterers arguing with resort management. I took a deep breath. Let's fix this. As we walked toward the entrance, I spotted my father pacing in the lobby, phone pressed to his ear. He saw me and froze mid-step. He's here, he said into the phone, then hung up. Calhoun, thank God. No apology, no acknowledgement of their treatment, just relief that I was there to solve their problem. Where are the vendor coordinators? I asked, all business. Management office down that hallway, he pointed. Everything's falling apart. The florist is threatening to pack up what they've already delivered. The catering staff won't set up. The band won't unload their equipment. I'll handle it, I said, already moving toward the office. Where's Tyler? Upstairs with your mother. He doesn't know the extent of the problems yet. At least they'd spared him that. Small mercies. The next hour was a flurry of activity. I met with the resort manager, verified my identity, and authorized all the pending payments. I spoke personally with each vendor, apologizing for the confusion and ensuring they had what they needed. Slowly the crisis abated. Florists resumed arranging centerpieces. Catering staff began setting up serving stations. Musicians carried instruments toward the ballroom. As I signed the final authorization form, the resort manager shook my hand gratefully. You saved the day, Mr. Carson. Not many people could have handled this situation so efficiently. I nodded, acknowledging the compliment, but feeling no pleasure in it. I hadn't come to be a hero. I had come because it was the right thing to do. As I stepped out of the office, I found myself face to face with Tyler. Tyler stood in the hallway, still dressed in casual clothes rather than his wedding tuxedo. His face registered shock, relief, and confusion in rapid succession. Cal, you came. His voice cracked slightly. They said you weren't coming. I wasn't, I admitted. But there was an issue with the vendor contracts. What issue? They were all in my name. The payments couldn't be processed without my authorization. Understanding dawned on his face. That's why everything stopped. The coordinator told us there were payment complications, but I had no idea. It's resolved now, I assured him. Everything's back on track. He stepped forward and hugged me tightly. Thank you. But why were the contracts in your name? It's a long story, I said, not wanting to burden him with family drama on his wedding day. You should be getting ready. The ceremony's in 2 hours. Not until we talk, Tyler insisted, leading me to a quiet corner of the lobby. Mom and Dad told me you chose not to come, that you were too busy with work. Of course they had. That's not true. They asked me not to attend, said my presence would complicate things with the Montgomerys. Tyler's face fell. I confronted them after our coffee meeting. They promised they'd fix things with you. Their idea of fixing things was telling me the greatest gift I could give you was vanishing from the family, permanently. Permanently, Tyler looked stricken. Cal, I had no idea. I never wanted that. You're my brother. I know you didn't, I assured him. This isn't on you. But it is, he insisted. I should have stood up to them, years ago. I've always known how they treated you was wrong, but it was easier to stay quiet, to accept the favoritism because it benefited me. His honesty surprised me. You were a kid, Tyler. I'm not a kid anymore, he said firmly. And I'm done being silent. He looked around. Where are they now? Your mother was coordinating with the florist last I saw. Dad's probably still micromanaging the seating arrangements. Tyler nodded decisively. We're going to fix this. Right now. Tyler, it's your wedding day. You don't need this stress. What I don't need is to start my marriage with this weight on my conscience. Veronica knows how I feel about this. She's been encouraging me to stand up to them for months. That was unexpected. She saw through them immediately, Tyler said with a small smile. Called them out on their treatment of you the first time she met them. It's one of the reasons I love her. My estimation of Veronica rose considerably. We found our parents in a small antechamber off the main ballroom, huddled with the wedding planner. They looked up as we entered, relief at seeing me quickly morphing into wariness at our united front. The vendors are taken care of, I said coolly. Everything's proceeding as scheduled. Thank you, Calhoun, my father said stiffly. We appreciate you coming to resolve the situation. I didn't do it for you, I replied. I did it for Tyler. My mother glanced nervously at the wedding planner. Perhaps we could discuss this privately. Actually, Tyler interjected, I think we should have witnesses for this conversation. I'm done with the secrecy and manipulation. The wedding planner, sensing tension, excused herself despite my mother's attempt to detain her. Once she'd gone, Tyler continued, I know what you said to Cal, about him disappearing permanently from the family. My parents exchanged guilty glances. We were under tremendous stress, my mother began. The wedding preparations. Stop it, Tyler, cut her off. This isn't about the wedding. This is about how you've treated Cal our entire lives. The constant comparison, the dismissal of his achievements, the emotional neglect. That's a very dramatic interpretation, my father protested. It's the truth, Tyler insisted. And I'm as guilty as you are because I never said anything. I accepted the favoritism because it was easier than fighting it. Tyler, you're upset, my mother tried again. The wedding pressure is not an excuse, he finished firmly. Nothing excuses asking my brother to disappear from our family. My father straightened his tie defensively. We were thinking of your future, Tyler. The connections being made today are worthless if they come at the expense of my relationship with my brother, Tyler stated. I don't want connections with people who would judge my family, and if that's what the Montgomerys are like, then maybe this whole wedding is a mistake. Don't be ridiculous, my mother gasped. You love Veronica. I do, Tyler agreed, and thankfully she feels the same way I do about this situation. She's appalled by how you've treated Cal. The door opened, and Veronica herself entered, elegant, in a dressing gown, her hair half-styled for the ceremony. I heard raised voices, she said, coming to stand beside Tyler. Is everything okay? We're having a long overdue family discussion, Tyler told her, taking her hand. About time, she said, surprising everyone. She turned to me. Calhoun, I want you to know that Tyler has told me everything about how his parents have treated you. I find it disgraceful, and I want you to know that you will always be welcome in our home and our lives. My parents looked thunderstruck. Their perfect alliance with the Montgomery family was taking an unexpected turn. Veronica, my mother began carefully, this is a family matter. I'm about to become family, Veronica interrupted smoothly. And in my family, we don't ask people to disappear because they might not impress our social connections. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. You don't understand the full situation. I understand enough, Veronica replied coolly. And so do my parents, by the way. When Tyler told them what was happening, they were horrified. My father specifically asked that Calhane be seated at the family table. This was news to everyone, including me. My mother looked as if she might faint. The family table, she repeated weakly. Right between Tyler and my father, Veronica confirmed. Dad was quite impressed when Tyler told him about Calhane's business achievements. He's been looking for someone to overhaul the technology systems for his arts foundation. The irony was almost too perfect. The very connections my parents had tried to shield from my pedestrian career were actually interested in what I had to offer. Tyler squeezed Veronica's hand gratefully, then turned back to our parents. Here's what's going to happen, he said with newfound authority. Cal will be at our wedding seated where Veronica's family has requested. You will treat him with respect and acknowledge his presence. And after the honeymoon, we're going to have a longer conversation about how things need to change going forward. My mother looked to my father, clearly expecting him to object, but he seemed to have deflated the fight gone out of him. Fine, he said tersely. If that's what you want? It is, Tyler confirmed. And one more thing. I want Cal to be my best man. That caught me by surprise. What about Jason? He'll understand. He's a good friend, but he's not my brother. Tyler turned to me. If you're willing. The gesture meant more than he could know. After a lifetime of being second choice, being chosen first, especially in this context, was powerful. I'd be honored, I said, sincerely. It's settled then, Tyler declared. Now I need to get dressed, and Cal needs a tuxedo. He glanced at his watch. We have 90 minutes until the ceremony. The next hour and a half passed in a blur of hurried preparations. The wedding planner, upon learning of my promotion to best man, moved with impressive efficiency to integrate me into the proceedings. Jason, to his credit, handled the change graciously, though my parents' tight smiles throughout the process spoke volumes about their true feelings. As the ceremony began, I stood beside Tyler at the altar, watching him beam as Veronica walked down the aisle. Despite everything, I felt genuine happiness for my brother. He had found someone who not only loved him, but had the strength of character to stand up for what was right. The reception that followed was a study in contrasts. My parents maintained a cool distance while Veronica's family welcomed me warmly. Richard Montgomery, far from being the elitist my parents had described, was keenly interested in my business and arranged for us to meet after they returned from the honeymoon. Tyler speaks very highly of you, he told me during a quiet moment. Says you're the smartest person he knows. He's biased, I smiled. Perhaps. But he's also right about people more often than not. It's one of his gifts. As the evening wound down, I found myself on the terrace, taking a break from the celebration. Laura joined me, slipping her hand into mine. You did a good thing today, she said. I just signed some papers. That's not what I mean, and you know it. You showed up despite how they hurt you. You put Tyler's happiness above your own feelings. I gazed out at the moonlit gardens. It felt right. For the first time in a long time, I made a choice about my family that wasn't about seeking approval or avoiding rejection. I chose to be the person I want to be, regardless of how they see me. And how do you feel now? I considered the question carefully. Free, like I've finally broken a pattern that's controlled me my whole life. 6 months passed. Tyler and Veronica returned from their honeymoon and settled into married life. True to his word, Tyler initiated several difficult family conversations, insisting on accountability from our parents. The process was painful and ongoing, with my father particularly resistant to acknowledging his role in the family dysfunction. My mother made somewhat more effort, occasionally calling to check in or sending articles about my industry that she thought might interest me. It was a small gesture but significant, given our history. I harbored no illusions about a perfect family reconciliation. Some wounds were too deep, some patterns too ingrained. But there was movement, however, slight towards something healthier. My business partnership with Richard Montgomery's Arts Foundation flourished, bringing Carson solutions into cultural circles my parents had once deemed beyond my reach. The irony